So, in this video, we're going to talk about how to read critically. Now, it's a lot to cover in just one video, so we're going to talk about some basics. Basically, what we're going to be talking about is how to read actively as a process. One thing you'll find through all these videos is that I'm going to be talking about how to do things as a process. Process helps you to be thorough in getting things done complete, but more than that, also hitting all sorts of different steps we may not think about normally, so that we can be more efficient and effective in how we go about doing things when it comes to reading and writing. In this case, this video, we're talking about reading. So often when people sit down to read, they do it because they have to, or they do it for fun, right? But we don't usually think about either of those things. If we're reading for fun, we just sit down and we're thinking about the story, and that's fine, because we're probably going to be engaged because it's something we're choosing to do for our own enjoyment. We may not be thinking about whether we enjoy it or not because we're thinking about the actual story. That's fine. That's a good thing. But when it comes to schoolwork, the kind of stuff that we really have to think deeply about and come back with an answer that we have to present to someone else, so often we trudge through it. We don't go into it willingly, which is natural, but often we don't think about why we're doing it. We're doing it because we have to. Something that my students say all the time. I'll give them an assignment. I'm like, okay, then why are we doing this? And they're like, because you said to. And it's true, right? That's why they're doing it. But that is not your purpose in doing it. If you think, I'm doing this because so-and-so told me to, then how are you supposed to walk away having completed that, except to say, well, I did it? But you're not going to come back with quality reading having happened, right? So you need to be able to identify from the outset why you're doing it. So here's a process to help you kind of keep your purpose in mind throughout the process. And it's basically what you do before, during, and after you read. In this case, we're going to call it previewing the text, taking notes, and then thinking about what you've read. This also lines up with the chapter I assigned in the textbook, so make sure you read that as well. Okay, so let's talk about, before you start reading, what many people call previewing the text. Okay, when you're previewing the text, what you're trying to do is you're identifying your purpose in reading, right? You're thinking, okay, why am I reading this? What am I trying to accomplish? So that you are aware of it, right? If you are aware of what you're trying to accomplish, you're much more likely to be able to do it. I always think about Alice in Wonderland, the famous scene in the book, where Alice comes to fork in the woods, and there's a Cheshire cat, and she's lost track of where the White Rabbit is. And so she asks him, she's like, which way am I supposed to go? And he's like, where do you want to go? She's like, I don't really know. And he says, it doesn't really matter which way you take. You're going to get somewhere. And that's the attitude we cannot have, right? You have to know what it is you're trying to accomplish so that you can take the right path to get there. If we're just saying, I don't know, I'm just doing this because I'm supposed to, we may not get to where we want to go because we're too busy thinking about the wrong things, or not busy enough thinking about the right things, right? So, yes, you need to identify your purpose from the outset, and then you can kind of become familiar to a degree with what it is you're about to read. So you're establishing a context that you're going to continue to reevaluate and use to help you to identify your purpose. If you have an idea of what you're reading before you go into it, you can continue to double check whether your interpretation or that context is accurate. And that's going to have a big influence on how you interpret or read a text. Is if it doesn't turn out to be what you thought it was, well, you probably need to update what you think about it. Does that make sense? Anyway, these are all important things to do before you start reading. Once you start reading, it's important that you do something to keep yourself active, whether you are asking yourself questions or literally taking notes. Taking notes is a great way to keep your mind active, thinking about your purpose, but also very specifically what it is you're reading so that you're getting something out of it, right? Okay, so as you take notes, good idea, write down the important ideas and concepts that the author is presenting. As you do that, you might come across specific quotes, paraphrases. You might want to write down summaries of what you think is important, and along with that, you need to cite the source. If you separate reading and citing, you're making your job twice as hard, because when you're reading it and you're like, ding, 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 this is important, cite it right away. Just put down a page number. You know what the source is? Give yourself at least a breadcrumb trail, so that if you end up using that information from your notes, you know exactly where it was and you don't have to go back and find it again. Yeah. See, that's why I say do it at the same time. So important. Plus, it keeps you alert and awake, and you're thinking about, wait, am I accomplishing my purpose or not? All important things. Okay, so that being said, once you've finished reading, it's important to not just go, well, I'm done. Okay, great. Now you can do something else. No, you have to stop and think about what it is you just read. Even if you understood it, take the time to think about it so you can double check whether you accomplished your purpose or not. And if you think through it and you realize that you have, great, then you know you did what you're supposed to do. But if you never take the time to think about it, then again, you're just wandering in the woods and you're waiting for someone else to tell you where to go. Or you're thinking that just because you wandered, you accomplished something. No. You read something to accomplish something, whether it's to have fun or to get information out of it. If you're trying to read critically, then yeah, you are looking specifically to break down, to analyze whatever it is you're reading. We're going to talk about that more in the next video, but take notes. And you look back at your notes, write a summary of what it is that you've just read, so that you have taken what's in your head, you've dumped it onto the page, so that when you go back to look at it later, assuming this analysis will be more than one sitting, when you go back to look at it later, you can say, all right, let's remember what it is I went over last time. And it's so much more effective. You don't have to sit there and go, oh, what was that thing that I was thinking of earlier? Because it's right there on the page. It can remind you, and there you go. So again, when it comes to reading critically, what you're really trying to do is to know why you're doing it and to remind yourself of that process throughout, and then just be effective. Effective way, an effective thing to do before you start reading is to know what it is you're about to read, get some context, and know why you're reading it. Then, as you read it, take notes so that you can pull out all the important stuff and remind yourself, am I accomplishing what I want? And you're continuing to reevaluate what you think about the source based on not just a prejudgment, but a judgment of what it is you're actually reading. Having done that, you can move on to having read it, to think about whether you accomplished it or not, what your final thoughts are, dump it onto the page, so that now you've made a tangible, if you will, version of your thoughts that you can use later. So again, it's just an effective process among many that we talk about in this class to help you to read more effectively and to read critically. So I hope that this video was helpful. There's a lot of great resources on the internet to follow through with this, but these are some basic ideas, what you do before, during, and after you read, so that you can read critically. Thanks for watching.